Well, that's probably a bigger point. Is do we need community? I think most of us would say yes, we do. But as we know, culturally, men entering that space and talking about that sort of intimate thing. I don't know if taboo is the right word, but it's certainly something we withdraw from. And what we need to do is change that particular paradigm. How do we get men to actually open up and talk about this? We can always say that we focus on the female side of things quite a bit, and we do, but that's also facilitated by the females themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They have a far greater input and a far greater willingness to open up about it.
Welcome to the Full Stop Podcast with Berenice Smith, Sarah Lawrence and me, Michael Hughes. If this is your first time here, our podcast is centred around supporting the childless not by choice community. And our aim is to be a focal point for the community, and with all our special guests, show you how to manage your grief and give a voice to the issues specific to us. And by example, show that the full and happy life can be had without the children we dearly wanted. Now sadly, we were without Sarah this month as she was quite unwell, but I'm glad to say she's on the mend and will be back with us next month. This episode, we are joined by a courageous group of men from 3 continents talking about community from a childless man's perspective. So let's find out who they are. Well, welcome to the Full Stop Podcast. And today is about guys. And today we're going to talk around about what community looks like for men, why it's so hard for men. Do we need it? So today we have with us Russell Patter from Australia. Awesome to see another Aussie. We have Agnes from Latvia, and we have Don from the west coast of the United States, who is up at 2 a.m. in the morning for us. So that's an awesome effort. So just quickly, in your own way, and I'd like you to introduce yourself so that our listeners can get to know you a bit more. So how about you go first, Russ?
Yeah, g'day. My name is Russ, 52 years old, live in Melbourne, Australia. Started my infertility journey back in about 1998. Went through to about 2005. Was married for 26 years, currently separated, and still childless. Currently a fur father. I have a dog and 2 cats. Even though it's been a long time now, childlessness for me is still a very relevant and current thing. So.
Oh, thanks, Ross. Agnes, you please, just in your own way and your own time,
Yes.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Agnes. I come from Riga, Latvia. It's Northern Europe, and I have been married for 12 years now, and since for some 10 years now, I know that I can't have biological children. We had a big struggle together with my wife and separately with these issues, but now we're coming to terms, mainly thanks to her, because she has done an amazing job with herself and now is trying to start and has successfully started Instagram account and Facebook group for women here in Latvia. And I'm watching and trying to get an inspiration to do something myself, but currently just watching and trying to understand how I feel about all these things. Thank you.
No, thanks, Agnes. And look, please pass on congratulations to your wife too, because I do follow her on Instagram and she's very active. I just wish I could understand Latvian, but
We need to put that onto our own stuff, actually. If that's all right, and with her permission, Agnes, it would be lovely to share that on our website and to all link up, because that sounds like really powerful and amazing work. So yeah, thank you for letting us know about that.
And Don.
Good morning. I'm Don Martinez from Los Angeles, California, 57 years old, and also childless. I don't know how to. I guess I always just start by saying I'm childless because I haven't been able to find a life partner. So it's a different circumstance, and that is something that I never imagined would be so. I thought I would marry young, have many children, lots of children, and it would come pretty easily. But for some reason, it hasn't worked out for me that way. I am first generation Filipino, so there's a big immigrant story there for me. And a lot of kind of my middle life was kind of taken up, I think, as I look back and trying to sort that all out, work through a kind of change in profession and things like that, where I had to kind of recover big parts of myself from a large, larger story, and kind of reconcile myself with some of the losses of that story. And somewhere along the way, children kind of got put to the side, and I thought it'd come eventually, and it hasn't come for me. So that's my circumstance and my story.
Thanks, Don. Look, and thanks, guys, because I know this is not easy for us to chat like this, and so I really appreciate your courage coming on the show today. So when you said you're first generation Filipino, Don, we have quite a large Filipino community in Australia. And one of the things that is very, very evident is they are very community focused. And so how does that sit with you, in terms of, do you feel like you have a community within the Filipino community, I guess I'm trying to say, or do you feel you are the odd one out?
Thanks for the question, Michael. It's on the outside, I do have, a lot of community in terms of proximity, but it's a very pronatalist community. So, growing up, my internal struggle and who I was becoming as a person was never really, I guess, asked about. Instead, what was asked is, are you married yet? Are you going to have children, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of, I don't know how to put it, a lot of shaming words if you're not able to achieve those goals. So increasingly, I don't feel like I can talk to my Filipino community, even my parents and so on. It's just a no-fly zone for me. It's just kind of unsafe, as you know. And so you put on the brave face, but what do you do with the single guy who's not producing anything? Is he? And then people make all kinds of stories, and you just have to take it. So I would say, it was always that way, separate from kids, I think, just because who I am. But when you add that I'm not able to even give the basic signifiers to the community of some kind of legitimacy as a man, certainly finding a partner and then having children, then it just becomes a kind of a silence because people don't know what to say.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Russ? I know you're a busy man in terms of what you do for work, but
yeah.
Do you feel like you have a? Do you feel like you have a community, or do you feel alone?
I have a community with Clan of Brothers, and I must admit, since I saw your article, the ABC one, it certainly has expanded that for me, and I've found other places to get information. But from a general point of view, like Don, all my family have had no issues with fertility. All my friends have kids. It's something which they, I suppose, can sympathise with, but their general understanding of what we go through is quite limited and maybe a little bit naive. But we see that in the community that this is not talked about. We know that. So I don't have a huge community around me when it comes to childless, not by choice. I have some great friends who do their best to understand, but I still think that even with the best of them, one of their biggest techniques to deal with it is to avoid it. Whether it's due to a reluctance on their part to talk about it, or whether they're concerned about what sort of impact they'll have on me if they discuss it. Straight conversely, though, I'm quite happy to discuss it at length with people, because the only way we'll educate people is to start talking about it. So my community is limited, to say the least. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Russ. What about you, Agnes? I know you have a group of friends that you game with, but can you talk to them about this?
No, definitely no. Childless is, of course, is no-go topic here in Latvia in general. And again, I somehow channel my thoughts through my wife's infertility group for women, but I feel the same way as she opened a closed she created a closed Facebook group for women to join and to discuss things, and they are afraid to join even a closed group, even sometimes anonymously, because Latvia is a small country. Well, we have like 2 million Latvians in the whole world altogether. And at some point, somebody is going to know you. You are going to be like, people are, well, not that close, but they know each other from somewhere. And as the country is so small. And that's why people are afraid to come out and to speak about these topics. And one of the reasons is that Latvia is really young in terms of inclusion and diversity. We are in European Union. We are, well, technically and politically quite open to all these things, but still Latvians by themselves, they are like silent haters. They do not express emotion, but they do not like foreigners. They do not like different people. They say, okay, you can be different, but do not come and show that to me. And well, that's why a lot of people, I believe, are still afraid to come out, and not just like the big come out, but even these, like, I do not have children, and it's different, is quite a scary topic to talk about with people you do not know. Okay, with friends you can try, with family of course, but it's hard to get a community speaking, well, the whole Latvian society speaking about these things. And as we discussed with my wife, I believe that the first thing here in Latvia is to make well, this topic, the childless topic, or some other inclusion topics, a relevant part of the community stream. And when people are talking about that, and well, it's easier and it will be safer for all these people who struggle with it privately to come out and be open with it, even in some closed groups or whatever. Thank you.
I find that quite astonishing that there is such a different culture, a cultural diverse attitude towards different, where you're all coming from across the world and how that varies. Because I think from sort of I can't speak for every woman in this situation, but we've kind of just about almost crept over that edge where we can mention it, and usually there might be somebody around who might just get it in any kind of group. Someone might come on and go, oh yeah, they might not get it, but they might just offer some support. But in communities, but also online, that's incredibly isolating. It must really affect your mental health as well. That must feel quite difficult for all of you.
I would like to continue on mental health issues as well, as from a point of community speaking, because when we want the community, we believe people have somehow managed to get over the first fear of admitting to themselves. But here in Latvia, for example, when you go to infertility clinic, you do all the physical stuff, and then the doctor even usually he does not offer some therapist or some psychological help. Well, does not direct you to the help from a psychological point of view. It just goes, okay, well, didn't happen, so deal with it, live with it. The usual, maybe you should try adoption and other of these things. And then when a person has gone through all this hard stuff and got a, well, I don't care attitude from a doctor, then it takes a lot of individual work to just come to a point to believe that there could be some groups of people who are open to all this. Okay, it's not, well, I am making a terrible picture of my country. It's not, well, always that way, but the general feeling is still that the old ways, the ways of Soviet Union, where we were like 20, 30 years ago, are still there in the minds of people who say, okay, we must be in only one form and only in one shape, and we must follow the rules of community, and if you are out, then we do not accept you, we do not talk about you, and that's it. And people are, the background is still there. People are young, people are modern in Latvia, but still the background feeling is still there, and that makes community building really hard thing here.
Sounds like it's I think and I'm going to say this, but I actually don't know, but it feels like it's when I sort of came out of all the failed IVF, and that was about 12 years ago. I'd like to think, I hope, that that's got better in the UK for couples going through failed infertility treatment, and generally doing childless not by choice in any form, that there is more out there. I hope that's the case, and that there is optimism that what we do here can actually bring more change to other countries. But I don't actually categorically know that, because it's 12 years ago. It could still be like that, but I kind of think we're getting more of a voice. I hope that helps, and that this podcast is also part of that growth and that change as well, by having episodes like this. But again, it feels like a big uphill sort of struggle. Does that relate to Australia and to America, Don and Russ? Is that similar experiences for you?
Look, there's no doubt, having done this journey through the modern development of social media, there's been a huge change there. It's also opened up for people who come from a culture where these sort of things aren't discussed openly. I mean, I'm blessed enough to be in a culture where we are relatively open, although certain people at the moment are trying to stop that. But anyway, sorry, I'll have to edit that out now, won't you? But it's, yeah, the one thing social media, one of the many things that it's given us, is this ability to bring community globally in a relatively simple way. and what we're doing here now is a great example of that. We're giving Agnes and Don a place to have a voice, to be listened to be empathized with. And it's not something back in 1998 when I started that existed. There just wasn't. Well, we had AOL and things like that, but it was fairly agricultural. And so what we're seeing now is this ability to reach out across the world and say, we're here. How can we help? What can we do? And what can you do for me? You know, what can you teach me about what other people are going through? Because let's face it, most of us are quite naive about how what we're going through in our country is handled elsewhere. We don't really see that unless it makes it to mainstream media, and this subject does not make it to mainstream media. So yeah, it's a really interesting place to be, and it's where our community is going to grow, I think.
So as all members of the Clan of Brothers, and you are all very, much contribute to that a lot. There's only a small group of guys that actually contribute in the clan, but there's lots of people watching, because I can see how many people look at posts, and there's lots. But there's a lot of guys that don't engage. And I'd like to explore that a little bit, because that's about community. That's about trying to break down some of the walls and we don't need to get guys to open up so much as just contribute, be part of something. Why do you think it's so hard for us guys to do that? The reason I'm asking this question is because we know why, but the biggest audience that will listen to this podcast will actually be women. And one of the things, not only is this podcast about us, but it's also about helping women understand the way that we tick and the things the barriers that are in our way to community. So, yeah. What do you think some of those barriers are? So one of the things that I think about is in Australia, we have a very large proportion of male suicide. We do have a lot. And so we know there's a problem, and we sort of know how to fix it, but why don't we? What is it that stops us doing that? Or is that too much of a big question?
It's a big question, but I think it's a real important one, Michael. I work actually a lot with men in my practice, and there's a documentary out on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen it, about Marty Fisher and Andy Roddick and the tennis thing. And there's this fear, interestingly enough, in that culture of being soft. So it really kind of brought to boil, I think, this feeling for me about the fear of being like somehow weak or soft in the men's culture. And so I was taught early on not to bring any of my shortcomings or my fears, especially, and for me, like, it's one thing to like say I'm not able to have children, but along with that, I also have to talk about not being able to secure a marriage, if you will. So there's a double shame there in terms of my sexual power or lack thereof, so to speak. So for that specific community of men who are childless not by choice because of singleness or other circumstance besides infertility, I feel a little lump every time I even bring it up, because it feels, the shame around it is so intense. And I can bring it up to my women's community, to friends of mine who are women, and they're very empathetic. But the men, I have to really be careful who I bring that up with. because of what they'll attribute to that in terms of how they see me.
What about you, Russ?
Did Agnes want to speak? I'm just
No, go ahead.
sorry. It's funny. I work in an industry where we should be quite empathetic and open and caring. It is what we do. Just for anyone who's wondering, I'm a paramedic. But there is still that that need to reaffirm our masculinity. There is a level of toxicity there which still exists in a group of caring, intelligent people, and I think, and globally, we're seeing a resurgence of some of this. You know, look at me, look what I've done, look at me as a man. And we keep on connecting our masculinity, our manhood, to our penis. We keep on, can we have children? How tough are we? Would we win a fight? These sort of things, which are, for a lot of people, thought to be in the past, are still very current, still very relevant. I'm an ex-soldier, so being that sort of He-Man thing was appropriately drummed into me then. But we see so much of it outside of that environment. And if you actually come up and have the wherewithal to tell people, they ask, do you have children? I always come back with, no, I can't, as opposed to, no, I don't. And that's when the conversation changes. You always get the occasional great one that will go, oh, so, how do you feel about that? How does that affect you? With those great leading empathic questions. And then there's the other ones who are, what's wrong with you? And I'm quite happy to discuss that. But if you're not supported, or you don't have the self-care and self-confidence to have those conversations, what you do is you withdraw within yourself and you keep it to yourself. And you talk about the level of male suicide in this country. We have an issue with suicide per capita anyway. I think part of it is we're not able to actually express ourselves openly, and that holding in of so much grief and so much pain is going to need an outlet eventually, and quite often that is a destructive, dysfunctional outlet. Anger, drinking, other substance abuse, and mental health issues and suicide.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Agnes, please.
Yes, I believe that men do need support groups, but unfortunately, most of us won't admit it. We just won't, and it's because men are afraid to open up. Okay, maybe I'm speaking about myself or a general person, but just bear with me. Okay, I believe that men are afraid to open up, and that's why they are afraid to join these support groups. And the fear, as Pat Russ just said, it's not a soft emotional fear, like, oh, I'm afraid of something. No, it's a deep inner fear of not being masculine enough, the deep inner fear of if I open up, somebody is gonna crush my inner thing, my only thing that I am still everybody feels insecure in some way, even if they don't admit it. There is something that they are insecure of. And then there are these basic beliefs that make us a person that we strongly believe in. And coming into a new group, into new support group, clan of brother or whatever, and admitting to something like that opens a person up to being ridiculed, to being shamed, to being cancelled, or call it whatever you want. And that's a huge fear for anybody to be in that position. And if you're already vulnerable by having to go through all these childless issues in general, and then coming to a group, even if it says, okay, we are friendly, everybody feels that he's special, I'm special, you are special, everybody is special. And people believe that their issue is really specific. It's like teens, like in a teen movie or in a teen support group. So people say, okay, I have this love issue, and it's like unique. Nobody in the world has had this much love for anybody, and we just can't be together, but we want to be together. And I believe that this is the inner fight that a man is struggling with himself when he joins some group, and he says, okay, I admit to everybody, okay, I tell how unique I am. And then the relief comes only after you post it, and that after someone says, okay, I feel you, I see how this is happening to you, and I have been through some similar struggle, and only then. But the first step of admitting to yourself and posting it, the inner struggle, the inner fear. And it's not something like, okay, as you said, the podcast is for women, and they will think, okay, so my significant other or my partner is afraid. I'm gonna go and say, do not be afraid. Nobody is gonna admit it. Nobody is gonna say, okay, I feel the fear. Most of people actually do not have not named the emotion they feel as fear or as something specific. They just feel the threat, but they do not know how to work with that. And well, that's a huge issue. And therapy, I don't know what, or self education by reading or being in a group and watching from a side is a step forward to some better future. That's why nobody opens up. Well, not a lot of us open up. And even if we do open up, well, I'm speaking, but I'm still protecting my inner self by speaking. It's just a way of coping with the fear. I'm just blah, 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 blabbling a lot, just not to show the deep fear. That's how I am. And everybody is different. Most people are better just being quiet. Thank you.
You're right. I mean, I can speak for listening to you, Agnes, reminds me of when the ABC article came out that they did on me. And one of the things that was a little bit hard to manage was the absolutely brutal comments that came back on some of that. Some of them were absolutely brutal. Stop moaning. I think I made a joke about I said to the person who made it, so make a joke about it and say, if this big, fat, gruff, hairy guy, can speak out, then I'd like to be a role model for everyone else. And whoa, just the abuse I copped on that. And it's I think that's listening to you guys, that's, I think, the experience. It reminds me, you sort of grounded me and thought, did I open myself up too much then? Should I have done that? And my wife was just like, what? Why did you open yourself up like that? Why? And I sometimes question it too. So when you said that, that's what come to my mind is that, yeah, look, it's out there. The ridicule is out there. So people can be so fucking brutal, and And now I've lost my train of thought. But that happens.
As if actually, when you sort of talk about that, it's when I first, long time ago, first sort of outed, if you like, that I was childless not by choice. And it was in a local paper who didn't moderate the comments, left them on even though they said they weren't. And I was utterly unprepared for the backlash that I got, given literally my local newspaper, so it's in the city. Cambridge, where I live, is a city, but it's actually not a very big city. So again, that whole kind of who you might know, Agnes, in terms of your commute where you live, you think I can kind of relate to that in the sense that on your own doorstep is scary, and the backlash. Well, why don't you just adopt? I probably didn't I didn't start trying early enough. All those sorts of things that you get, but I was able to call on friends on Facebook and other places in social media and say, help me out here. And quite a few of them specifically created accounts with the newspaper, even though they weren't local, to come in and go, actually, no, you're wrong, to give me a little bit of support and to do something. So that kind of collaborative community effort that I think can come from networks and social media when you reach out and do that. And it strikes me from this conversation that I wonder if there is a sub-divide within what we're talking about here between genders, and whether there is something within the community whereby we support each other a little bit more, and we perhaps don't say men's infertility and men being childless not by choice is over there and women are over here. Because I think, and I don't know, Michael, you might know the answer to this, but I think that the full stop is quite unique in that we talk as much as we can in a diverse way about childlessness affecting everyone, regardless of sexuality. It affects everyone. But I kind of think when I've looked at the other podcasts in this area, with all due respect to them, but with, again, around men's health in general, like men's health podcasts, they talk about men's health and mostly focus, I think, on parents and on dads and their mental health. And occasionally they might just go, oh, we'll just stick some, male infertility in there, but it's all wrapped up in male infertility. And I'm just wondering whether there is something within our collectiveness as a childless community, and that we can do more outside of our relationships to help you and support you, and what that might look like if that could happen. That's a big question again, isn't it? I'm riffing, and Michael, you may have wanted to go this a different way, so please say we'll come back to that if you need to.
Well, no, actually, no. Now you mention that, I was really touched today by something that Patricia, Fawkes, that's it. Hi, Patricia, if you're listening, and thank you very much for your kind words in your blog today. But she actually wrote a blog about almost like we're forgetting the men, and she referenced both myself and Robin Hadley. And look, I really think there's merit in what you're saying. And there are a lot of women out there that are recognizing that this is about us all. And perhaps there is somewhere there that as a like you say, as a collective, we can support each other. What do you think, guys?
There is one huge other side of all this. It's the LGBTQ community that is also basically childless, not by choice at some points, for men, for anybody of them, and they have this other aspect of being that other group that's been mistreated in some countries and ways, and well, that brings the group of people who would be interested and who could be covered by Childless Not by Choice to a really big size. And I believe that it is more a problem than a solution, because when you get that big and when you bring all the topics and issues of different people and different things, then you just struggle with getting to some common ground. Okay, there is basic things, but still, okay, we can talk about men and women together, but well, it's hard to draw a line. In my mind, I can't still find where is the line, because well, the issues you can get, how you get to being labeled childless not by choice are really different, and I myself haven't found a way to find a connecting ground for all of them for now yet.
Yeah. I think one of the things I can see, and I'm going to have to speak this one purely from my own point of view, because not everyone who's childless not by choice has been through an assisted reproductive technology journey. I have. One of the issues that I see, and it's something that I've discussed in therapy about myself, was the male involved in it. If I mean, I had male factor infertility as well, but so much of the effort and so much of the pain and so much of the management is done by the female, and their level of discomfort and the level of what they go through is greater than what we physically go through by a magnitude. And so one of the things that I always did, and that people, counsellors and that pulled me up on, was that everything I cared about was my wife and my own welfare, my own health was a secondary thing, because my whole contribution to it was to masturbate into a cup. That was my physical interaction with assisted reproductive technology. Whereas my wife went through laparoscopies, hysteroscopies, yada, 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 injections, hormone showers, hyperstimulation. It just kept going. And I think if we're not careful, what men will do is withdraw back to make sure their partners, are being cared for better than they are. And I wonder if that's something we need to keep separate. Because for some of us, it's just a bad habit. It's the lack of self-care and a lack of self-awareness that we go through. The other point that Agnes brought up was the LGBTQI plus community. It's funny, when I've raised this issue within our inclusion community where I work. It's been a real hit so far. I can guarantee that 50% of the people who've responded to me have been from the LGBTQI, because I've had 2 people respond and one of them was gay. So I think they have something to give us and something to support us with, because very broadly, there's an analogy between coming out as a member of that community and possibly coming out as being childless not by choice. Now, most people will go, oh, no, it's a different thing. It's not as psychologically damaging. Maybe that's part of the conversation we need to change, is how big a deal it is and how big an impact it has on us psychologically, how our mental health suffers by not being able to be open and honest about it. And they've been through that journey before, and it's something they can give us. It's something they can assist us with, if we can think of the right words to put it in and ask for their help.
That's a good point, Russ. Very good point. What do you think, Don? What's your thoughts?
Oh, I'm just feeling the pain of those comments. Don't be a moaner. And then it came to both you, Michael, and you, Bernice, right? So those really put, into words very specifically what we're up, or what can happen, I guess, if you quote are vulnerable and so on. But at the same time, I really, it also, especially for the men's community, I really want to change this kind of prison that we're all in as men. I think that it's a good time for it. There's a lot of talk, Brene Brown and others, around vulnerability, and the whole definition of masculinity is changing, and it's, it's a good time for it. And so I bring, actually, try to talk about my experience quite openly on the tennis courts with my pickleball friends. They'll say, "How are you doing?" I'm saying, "Oh, it's kind of rough. I'm kind of going through a grieving time." And they'll say, "About what?" And I'll say, "Well, not having achieved fatherhood," just as a casual conversation. And most of the time, people, they're not going to go deep into it, but they're appreciative of me dropping down the mask a little bit, and they'll share about things they're going through. So I'm trying to put myself out there as best I can, and also in my family, talking about it quite openly, struggles with dating, things like that at my age. People are just quietly listening to this weird story, and this. So I really think the men have to come together, and now's the time to really push to change this culture that I feel is really hurting us and harming us, and harming the next generation if we don't intervene.
I agree. I think it's one thing, I think, to put oneself on the line and have these to speak openly, but I think when the support isn't there to protect us, then it ends up kind of closing the conversation down again. You end up in this vicious cycle of speaking, getting hurt, being shut down, and then you have to go back through that whole deep exploration, I think, of oneself to then say the words again. And hope, really hope that actually the second time that you say something, you might get supported. Then the third time, the fourth time. And the way I've always thought about it, it might help one person. But actually trying to do that, you've got to make sure, it's odd. It's sometimes some of these things, and I don't know, Michael, if you found this too, you don't necessarily know when something's going to be broadcast, posted, shared, whatever. Sometimes it's outside of your control. Therefore, that day might not be the good day for you. And it's not the day when you're wearing kind of the thick skin and you can cope with the kind of, oh, just adopt comment. But actually, by sometimes saying something, helping somebody else, getting a connection and building another connection and a connection and a connection, can lead to some quite powerful friendships, or just knowing there's somebody just there, just standing offside, who's been through what you've been through. I think is possibly the way to sometimes reframe it, but it is ever so hard on those days. It's kind of why the podcast is quite good, because we can control to a point. Necessarily control, that's the wrong word, but it's our content, and we know that our audience want to listen to us, that it is a community, that we are providing that support, but also it helps us as well, because allows us to speak in a safe space, and it gives that kind of confidence too. A question popped into my head then, and I've talked my way out of it, and I can't remember what it was, but it was that was it. So I wanted to ask, and a kind of a sort of segue from all of that, is the clan of brothers. What does that mean to all of you? If someone is listening to this and they have perhaps said to somebody else, oh, you need to listen to this because Don said this, Agnes said that, and Russ said this, and it's just brilliant. And actually, this is Clan of Brothers. If you could just say to that person what that means to you and encourage them to join. Is there a message for somebody else out there?
For me, quite frankly, it's a clan of really admirable and strong man father figures, voices. You know, in my community, the men are generally silent, or they have that old masculinity. And so to hear, for example, Russ talking about being, a soldier and then paramedic, and then Russ, just to hear you, obviously today, just breaking out of those old forms and really kind of just in your voice modeling something very different, a very different kind of masculinity. That's what it is for me. It's because I have to absorb that. I have to, like you said, find protection around that to cultivate it within myself. And I appreciate what you said, Bernice, because it's one thing to just throw yourself out there and try to have these conversations. But you're right, you do. I ended up cycling and you retreat, and it's so much work to reconsolidate, yourself within yourself alone. And I don't have a partner, so the only voices I have are the Clan of Brothers and other men and women that I can find. So
I would like to say that Clan of Brothers is a safe space, a safe group, closed group, and I would like to speak about the technical part. As I say, closed group, it means that Facebook offers the opportunity to have people only by who have answered the questions, and the administrators. There is a team of administrators. There are like 6 or 7 people who are watching the topics, who are watching the comments, who are watching what's going on, who are watching who is applying, and actively safeguarding the place and the community, so that there are no bad or wrong or unpolite people in the group. And that's what makes the group safe to join. You can just join and see what's happening. And if you have a partner, a husband, a friend who is struggling, joining the Clan of Brothers is a simple thing to do. And there is nothing huge going on there. It's just a Facebook stream of texts and comments of people commenting and telling about themselves and supporting each other. And that's what's happening there. There are some activities, there are some live feeds, and so you can be more active or you can be as passive as you want. And as much as Michael is telling that, well, there are a lot of people who are passively just listening, it's fine. It's okay. You don't not need to be here out here speaking to be in a Clan of Brothers. It's not like even you, Bernice, when we started, you said, okay, you appreciate all the work that you are doing in the Clan of Brothers. People, if you're listening, do not be discouraged of it. You do not have to do work to be in a Clan of Brothers. You can just join and watch and see what's going on. And it's safe. I guarantee I'm one of the administrators. The way how we are accepting people in, we are asking quite personal questions, and it's just so that we are sure that they are more than less on the same wave or on the same feelings that the majority of the group is. So do not be afraid to join. It's just a Facebook group, but it can be a huge step towards some better future for you. Thank you.
It's a great power, I think, in quietly listening. Being part of something, just knowing it's there. Don't have to do anything, but just quietly listening, because that can all just filter through, can't it, in just a very quiet way, and just knowing that somebody is just there for you, even if it's just if you're reading. It's gentle sort of osmosis. I'm sure Sarah, if she was here, would have a really good way of describing that, but it's in my amateur terms, it's just having the words there that can just help you on the difficult days, even if you're quietly listening, and that's a very powerful thing to do.
Thank you. That sums up what I was trying to say. Yes, I'm not a native English speaker, so it's
I
hard
love
to...
your accent. I do. So thank you very much.
I think the biggest thing I've found with Clan of Brothers, as Agnes said, is the level of safety that is there. Any comment you're going to get back on what you put in is going to come from someone who has at least some understanding of where you are. I've seen people in that space completely strip themselves bare and start conversations about things that we would never speak about elsewhere. What Clan of Brothers is to me is a window into where we might be able to go, where that community and that open conversation can happen in a safe way, but it gives you this little microcosm where you, and I hate to use the word, but where you feel normal because you are one of many. And that's, I think, what we're working towards, and it's somewhere we have now to be there, if that makes sense.
It does indeed. It really does. I think one of the things I've noticed, and hope Michael doesn't mind me saying this, is that a big change in you, Michael, since you started the Clan of Brothers, since the podcast, but definitely since the Clan of Brothers as well, in how you talk about this, and I think the pride that you have in what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, that how do I put this? I'm feeling a bit emotional right now.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Because like it's as an admin, I get to see all the stories that come by and reason why people want to join. And it does, I don't want to say weigh on me, but it sort of I'm going to talk about it a different way. The chat we had recently, you, me, and Sarah, via our Facebook chat, where I was beating myself up for not being empathetic about something that, we were told.
Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah.
And I think what all this has done to me is made me realise that I've actually been quite emotionally immature, if that makes sense. In the last, I don't know, 20 years, I can just see a difference with myself now and before. I'm not quite sure when before was, and I'm sort of toying with the idea that it's that I was emotional. I don't want to say immature now, because that's probably a bit of a derogatory term, but as guys, that's something we know we don't do well. We don't do emotion well. And I just think that's changed in me. Being part of the Clan of Brothers and seeing all these stories and seeing the difference that it makes. Now, there are some guys that just being part of it is enough. And just reading other people's comments about what's going on is enough. And they are satisfied with that. And there are other guys that they do it tough and they'll go, I'm struggling today because of this. And I feel like I've grown in that way, sorry, I'll get emotional about it.
I think you're being very tough on yourself. You really are.
I guess I'm just trying to explore myself, actually. Sorry if I'm if I'm going off on one, but I just feel that it's made me grow, so listening to the guys here talk about, what they get out of it is great. And listening to where they think things should go, is all positive stuff. And it reinforces in me that they're all the things that I believe too. So I just think that, this whole exposure has just made me grow, emotionally. And I thank every one of the guys in the Clan of Brothers because they've been part of that. As well as you and Sarah have as well, in terms of, helping me grow. And,
I think it's the change that you've gone through, that we've all gone through, though. I would echo what you have said about me. I think there'd be an awful lot of listeners who would agree too with what you've said, regardless of being male, female, any sexuality, any gender. I think that is a journey that comes from, I think that we're all different. This all changes us. However we got to where we are now, today, whatever journey that was, whether that's circumstance, medical, whatever it might be, we are changed in such a huge way from where we were when we started this. Perhaps then we had hope that we would be parents. Now that hope is, we need to be heard. But with that comes a whole load of grief and recovery, perhaps in different forms. Again, we talk about that a lot, I think, perhaps with regard to sort of how we started the podcast. We were in different places, and you kind of think, oh, you're going to progress forward, but actually grief is not linear, as we all know. You go backwards and forwards, up and down this kind of route as to where you might be, but we bring that with us as well. So perhaps the hope is a different hope now, and it's actually almost really, I would say, as painful as the hope of trying to be a parent, because now we have these other people in the world who are fully fledged, opinionated adults. Some of them, many of them, have just literally given birth and been parents so easily, and they have a whole bunch of opinions that are really, really hard to change, and that can be exhausting. But it's so incredible and so amazing to know that there is some hope there, and I really, really feel optimistic that we can be part of that change, however that might be, whether it's quietly listening, whether it's going out and speaking, whether it's joining the Clan of Brothers or any other support group. I think it's incredibly important that there is that out there, that there is actually support now, and that's an amazing thing. And you, Mr. Hughes, are a big part of that. All of you are, Russ, Agnes and Don. It's amazing.
Thank you, very nice. I think one of the things I'd like to sort of pivot now to what we would like to see, and one of the things I'd like to see is the guys get together. So I've tried, like Russell and I have shared a beer down in Diamond Creek when I was on a work trip, and I've had a dinner with Sarah Roberts and her husband Kevin, who's part of the clan, and who else have I had? Anyway, doesn't matter. But that's what I really like. I really enjoy going out and meeting people, and that's my plan. So when this COVID rubbish is over, and I can get overseas, I'll be coming to LA, and I will be going to Latvia, because that and that's something that actually really fuels me. Is meeting people, meeting our community, touch and flesh, and sitting down and looking at people and having a good conversation. So
you and Sarah and your road trips, you're both obsessed, aren't you?
Yeah. So how would you like to see things? If you had a wish, I know I'm going off, I know I'm being a bit, whimsical here, but if you had a wish about community, what would it look like for you?
Oh, I have a great idea about this. I have thought about it so much. So I recently read that there are these the idea of community that is based on digital things, like in the beginning, in the podcast I was listening, it was a crypto community, like people who get their income from working with cryptocurrency. They can actually live anywhere in the world, anywhere they want, and they can get income, and they can be feel rather financially free. And the idea is to build physical houses and physical community for people somewhere great. Well, just choose any place in the world, just buy a plot of land and make a city, a town or something with people who are likely minded. And sometimes it's called digital common cause community. It's critic communities. There are these political communities, because people who believe in one specific thing, now when the world is connected and the world is open, well, apart from COVID and so, but when the world is open, you can actually do that. You can actually choose a place in wherever it's safe, wherever it's a good weather or whatever. Just build a fence, build houses, and make a community for people from all different parts of the world, for all different communities, nationalities, and so on, with similar or the same common cause. And that's a little bit futuristic, I understand, because you need still the supply chains. You need to understand how it's going to work and who's going to make food and who's going to take care of things and so on. But if I can imagine things, I would love to live in such a community. I would love to be a community, a part of community building of such a close-knit town, village, or whatever, digital village, that's how it's called. I would like to be a part of it, because I see myself, and I somehow hope that when I'm old and when I need support, then that would be something that I can contribute with, like being there and offering my advice, or just chatting with people, or taking care of young ones or old ones or whatever, and then they're going to take care of me. I somehow hope that's the futuristic imaginary thing that I hope for. So yes, digital village with people with a common cause. It doesn't have to be childlessness, definitely not. It can be anything else, definitely, because you need children in some point to just grow the community, or to support the community. But that's how I see the great.
You must have been listening to my wife, because she thinks exactly the same.
Oh, great.
She says, "Oh, wouldn't it be good if we could all live together and look after each other?" So you're not the only one who's thinking about that, Agnes.
And that's actually better than just paying someone who does that. Okay, because there are these assisted living houses, and you can just go there and then pay you all your pension or whatever savings you have, and be supported. But the community thing and common cause is what drives me to that.
Oh, nice one. What about you, Don and Russ? What do you think? What's your vision?
Yeah, Don.
I guess maybe for now a smaller step, just to have a men's group would be nice. I've been waiting for it for a while, and if I can contribute in some way to fostering that, I would love it, even if it's online. But I really do need a reliable group of men that I can not just send a post to, but that I can, feel like I have a connection with. And I think that's probably why I do these video podcasts, is because I feel a little more like I see people. I see Agnes, second time seeing Agnes, and things like that. So that to start, Michael, and then definitely in the community, I would love to be with more men who have a similar circumstance as me, in terms of singleness, because I think that's its own story in and of itself. But also then what you were talking about, Michael, is what I would love to. I need my soul to be nourished by more and more, which is, loss and grief. It forces growth in other ways. And for men, you were beginning to tell a story about you realizing that there's a maturity in me that's been forced emotionally, and it's evident, but it's also, that's the story that I'm working on my own. I want to articulate and hear what it looks like for other men. Is what does it look like for us to become, fathers, if you will, to ourselves first of all, and then to the world, at a much deeper level than just physically, obviously. And I think that hope is going to look so different for each man. And so that's what I need to. I would love to have a group where the men are openly talking and struggling through what does that look like to turn the loss into something really, into plan B for us, I guess you'd call it. I'm struggling right there. I'm kind of stuck, actually, and I'm like, okay. When I see children and a young father, I don't feel as much sadness, but I'm also like, well, what do I replace it with? And I've done a lot of things in my work, and I feel like I'm on course, but I just need help in like pushing it through.
Don, I think I should introduce you to Katie Seppi. She's doing great guns in the United States around childlessness, and maybe we should get you two connected so that, because she's got a big network of people, and maybe that might be a place to start with building your men's group in the United States, and especially out there in California.
It's funny because I've talked to her a couple of times and asked if I could even be in some of her groups, and she's surveyed some of the women and said, no, it's going to be men only. And then I introduced a friend of mine, female, also in a similar circumstance, to her, and she immediately found a group. She's like, I got this great group, Don, of single women. And I was like, how is it so, here I am for 2 years, and she just boom. So I would like to see that same kind of responsiveness in the men's community, that we have those structures.
Okay.
That we have to build it for ourselves. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think
that's something we need to work on. That's a thing we can help you with, Don. We really should. That's important. I could listen to you speak for hours actually about that. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Thank you, Bernice.
What about you, Russ?
A lot of food for thought there. And it's sort of since joining Clan of Brothers, I've put a lot of thought into where I am and how I actually handle this or don't handle it would be more appropriate. I talk openly about my childlessness. My fertility issues, that sort of thing. But I talk from a place of complete dissociation. I don't respond to it. I don't get emotional about it because the barrier I've built in front of it is there to keep me safe, to keep my inner child and my inner man as safe as I can keep him. What I want in a community is a place where I can tear down that wall and I can cry, I can be emotional, I can be angry if I have to be. A place where what I'm feeling is shared and felt by those around me in different ways. But a place where I can expose those raw parts of me with acceptance in a group of emotionally intelligent people who will take that journey with me. I mean, what Agnes was saying, I loved, and I would take his concept one step further. I wrote a poem years ago called Revelation. And we talk about revelation being this and that, and fire and brimstone. My belief that revelation is the day that we all actually realise that we are just one people. It's a very humanist view, and we talk about looking after us at end of life care for people who don't have children. Well, in my utopia, that would just be what the community does. That's my ultimate community. I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. But initially, just that place to be exposed in a safe environment. And part of that journey is up to me to move away from the dissociation I feel. Because yes, it makes it easy for me to talk about it, but it doesn't make it easy for me to process what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think that's probably a good place to wrap up, because I think Don needs to go to bed. It's got to be what? It's nearly 4 o'clock in the morning. And I would really like to thank you for coming on the podcast, because I know you need to look at yourselves as leaders, as leaders in the childless men's community, because you're out here, you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I feel very privileged to be here with you.
Me too. I think it's been an absolute honour and a privilege. I know that Sarah was so very, very, very sad that she couldn't be here today. She literally has completely lost her voice and all her energy as well at the moment. So we're wishing her a really, really speedy and safe recovery. And I'm just honoured and thrilled to be here. I always am every episode, but particularly I think when we have new voices sharing so much wonderful stories. I could listen to all of you talk for so much longer than the time that we have on the podcast. So thank you so very much, Russ, Don and Agnes. It's just been wonderful. I've had such a lovely time listening to you.
Thank you for listening. We hope you found this as enlightening as we did. Now, we would really love to help Don find his community in Southern California. And we know we have a big following in California, and we'd love to hear from you if you think you can help Don. So jump over to our socials or our website, www.thefullstoppod.com. Hover over Get in Touch at the top menu where you'll find our contact page, and we'll forward the info on to Don. Now, you can also use this if you have a burning topic we have not covered, or you want more info on the content of this episode, or you may even have an idea that we hadn't even thought of. So please reach out to us. And as always, it's important for us to let you know you're not alone.
Russ, I'm just so moved by what you shared. I just want to throw that in there. Truly.
You also.
Thanks.
It is, it's a very humbling experience to, firstly, to be in the presence of Michael and Berenice, two genuine pioneers who've had to put themselves out there and get absolutely flogged by a group of arseholes that we know don't understand where we are. And you've had the courage to do that. And then two more pioneers, Agnes and Don, who want to make this community a safe and inclusive place to be. And it's very humbling to be in your presence.